What's up guys? Today we're gonna look at the new MacBook Pro 2020. It is the 16-inch version and I'm gonna compare it to my own 2015 MacBook Pro and see what the pros and cons are and whether it's worth if you're thinking about upgrading. The thing for me though was, after 5 years of using the 2015 version, was it worth upgrading to this 16-inch 2020 version? So I'm not gonna go through all the specs and all the details about each machine. There's quite a few videos out there about that. But what I did wanna talk about was something that I couldn't really find online, which was if you had this computer, was it worth the upgrade? Was it worth kind of the spec bumps? How did it work with photo and video and the comparison between the two? So I'm gonna give you my thoughts as to whether or not the 2020 version, the 16-inch, is worth the upgrade. So here's a quick look at the specs that I had for the mid-2015 MacBook Pro. It is the 2.5 quad-core Intel Core i7. It does have 16 gig of RAM. In comparison to the new MacBook Pro, just to let you guys know, I did get the base model MacBook Pro. And I just bumped a few things, which was just the memory, which was 32 gig. So here, what I have is the MacBook Pro 16-inch, the 2020 version. It is the 2.6 gigahertz with 6 core. So this one has quad, this has 6 cores, Intel Core i7. It has 32 gigs of RAM, which is pretty much double the 2015. So that's a great kind of bump up in RAM. Right here for the graphics card, I have the AMD Radeon Pro 5500M, 8 gigs. I know that's a big spec bump in regards to, in comparison to the 2015. So talking about the specs there over the 5 years, I must say it doesn't really sound huge. But when we actually tested the two machines side by side, there is a big difference with the 2020 model. So if you want to talk about specs, Photoshop, Illustrator, Lightroom, Premiere, all those programs work a lot faster on this machine. So you can tell a big difference between the 2015 model and the 2020 model. Just a side note for you videographers or those who like to edit on their MacBook Pros, the 2015 model really struggled with 4K video editing, whereas the 2020 16-inch MacBook Pro, this base model, really handled the 4K footage quite well. I must say, when you play it back, it's pretty smooth, but once you do start adding effects onto the clips, you can see a slight lag and maybe a bit of a delay in playback. Onto other things which I found a little bit more important as well. A lot of people know that the 2015 model, the keyboard felt really, really good. The travel and the distance in that keyboard felt really well. So if I go ahead and type something on here, I think this feels great. And the feeling on that keyboard is very different to the models that came after the 2015 version. For the 2020 version, I must say, if you were to type on this, I think this keyboard feels okay. It's not the best feeling keyboard. I actually find that I prefer the 2015 keyboard a little bit better. I don't know about you, Jenny, do you prefer the 2015 model a little bit better? So I must say that after typing on the 2020 model, it feels okay. The 2015 feels better to me. I do prefer that longer travel. I also use a mechanical keyboard, the K2 in fact. And the feel of the 2015 model, I still actually prefer. I feel like they could have done that with the 2020, and I know that they've vastly improved it from the previous year models with that butterfly keyboard and that really short travel. I'd say it's okay, it's good, but I do actually prefer the 2015 model. So if you're wanting to upgrade for a better feeling keyboard, it's not really there. I'd say maybe use an external keyboard, but it's good for what it is. What I did want to bring up was the touch bar. Now, I haven't experienced the touch bar until this 2020 model. My 2015 model doesn't have it, obviously. And I thought it was kind of useless, to be honest. Once you've got all the shortcuts, once you know the buttons for every program that you use, this touch bar doesn't really do much for me. What I found was, because I know all the shortcuts in Photoshop, in Premiere, in all those editing softwares, I found myself not really going up to touch that touch bar. I was still using those shortcut keys. So I haven't really found a tremendous use for that touch bar. So if you're going from the 2015 model without the touch bar, then I don't think it's a big game changer for me. One thing that I'm not too sure about is when you go to the touch bar here, there's the option to select the brightness. Then you kind of have to close that, and then you have to press, say, volume, then you can control that or hit the up and down buttons and then come out of that. I found that a little bit irritating when, I guess on the 2015 model, you had these physical buttons where you can just press up and down and you kind of know what buttons you're pressing instead of going into a separate menu to control, say, for example, the brightness of your screen, come out of that and then press the actual volume and then adjust your volume there. There is a little shortcut though to these buttons. If you press the actual brightness button and hold, you can actually then adjust and slide. Same for the volume. So if I would come out here, press the volume button and adjust, you can actually see that I'm adjusting the volume, and then I can release and let go, and then that'll come out of the actual menu. I did find that a little bit more of a hassle than the normal physical buttons. So I do kind of like those buttons, but I understand where the touch bar idea, concept, and the usefulness of it could come into play. One thing to note as well about the touch bar, it does change depending on what program you are in. So right now, for example, if I am in Premiere, the touch bar actually changes to some of the icons, to some of the tools that you can actually select and choose. If you've got questions about the speed of the actual MacBook Pro 16-inch 2020 versus the 2015, I must say there is a big speed improvement. You can kind of feel it even as you use it just for general use, but you can really feel it in the video editing software, in Photoshop, in Lightroom. It is a beast of a machine, even for the base model. And I opted for the base model, and I must say I'm really impressed at how it works. That kind of brings me along to the next thing, which is the graphics. Now there's a big bump in the graphics card, as I said at the start of the video, and the graphics card can be felt in each program that you use. One thing that I did find though is if you use an external monitor and you plug it in, whether it be via HDMI or you use the display port, there is a bit of a speed decrease. Things that I've seen is your cursor tends to have a slight lag, and I'm not too sure whether it's just the monitors that I might be using, but certain monitors have it and certain monitors don't have it. And I'm assuming it's based on the resolution and the amount of the graphics card working to display those monitors. One big thing for a lot of people, and also for myself, was kind of the form factor. Was there much difference between the thickness and the size and the length of the machine? So I'm just gonna close the two and kind of hold it up. And as you can kind of see, there isn't much of a difference. I must say though that the 16-inch is slightly smaller, slightly thinner, but not a big deal. Now in terms of weight, there isn't a big difference in terms of weight. This does feel, the 2020 model does feel a little bit lighter, which is great. It does feel a little bit thinner as well, just when you carry it side by side. Talking about size as well, the two machines side by side in terms of their display, you can actually see that the 16-inch has a nicer real estate in terms of the screen. It goes almost to the ends. There's a smaller bezel toward the edges. You can kind of see that the 2015 model has thicker edges as opposed to the 2016 model with those nicer, thinner edges. So the perceivable size of it looking bigger as a 16-inch does feel that way just because of the smaller bevels on the edge. The last thing that I did want to compare was the fact that the 2015 had certain peripherals. There is an SD card slot on the 2015 model, which I love, a HDMI port, a USB 3 port on this side. There's a headphone jack, another USB, 2 Thunderbolt ports, and also the battery charger on the side there. Now, using these computers, I've personally bought 6 of them for our studio, and they've lasted all this time, and they've been worked to the ground. And I must say they are still working really, really well, and we still use them till today. One of the biggest reasons is the ports. If you have a look at the 16-inch MacBook Pro 2020, it does have the headphone jack on this side, 2 USB-C ports on this side, and I'll flip it around, 2 other USB-C ports. A lot of people have been saying there's no SD port, there's no other ports besides the USB-C port. I must say that I totally agree with that based on the workflow and kind of how we run things in our studio, which means that the dongle life is real. Using things like these to connect to your computer, which meant that I had to get a different hard drive to utilize the USB-C, the speed and everything like that. So I got the SanDisk SSD. It has the USB-C as well as a USB-C on the other end, but you get a little adapter, which is fantastic. I do recommend this particular SSD because you do get the adapter for a USB-A if you need to plug it into an older machine. The other thing talking about the dongle life is getting one of these. I might do a little review on this particular one. It's the Satechi one, but basically you plug in the USB-C, then there's other ports, as you can see. Now carrying this around is a bit of a pain because I'm not really used to carrying around dongles like this. After a few months of having this machine, it's gotten a little bit easier. But at the same time, having said that, I've bought a few of these just so I can keep some at home, keep some in the studio, and basically put it in my bag if I need it at any point that I'm traveling. So that dongle life is something that I did consider. It was something that was a bit of a pain upgrading, and that's why it did take me 5 years to upgrade, just because of that USB-C idea of plugging in dongles like this. So I guess the biggest question is it worth the upgrade? Is it something that you should upgrade to if you do have the 2015 model? I must say that we still use the 2015 MacBook Pro. A lot of our full HD edits, we still use this machine, especially when we're on set or maybe on location and we're traveling. It's a great computer to have. It does have the ports that you might need, for example, the SD card. But if you're wanting something a little bit more powerful, you've had the 2015 for a while, maybe your battery life cycle has gone through a few iterations and it's starting to die, the battery life isn't so good. This battery life on the 2020 16-inch MacBook Pro is pretty amazing. Even when you use it in video editing software or Lightroom, it handles the battery really, really well. If you were to just take this computer as it is and you don't need any of the dongles or any of the accessories to plug in, it's a great, great machine. That's kind of why we do store a lot of the things in the cloud. We use Dropbox, for example, and that's been really helpful because you can just download it and then use those files. The time where it does get a little bit funny is when you do use the dongle and you've got 3-4 things hanging out and sticking out of here, and then you got a few things sticking out of here, and then also on this side. It does get a little bit messy. So if you are a little bit of a minimalist and you like to keep things kind of neat and tidy, the dongle life thing is a bit annoying at times. Having said all that, I do love the MacBook Pro 16-inch 2020, and I did get the base model. It's really done wonders in terms of video editing and also photo editing as well. Hopefully for you guys out there who are thinking about upgrading from maybe the 2015 model, or maybe you've got a model that's even earlier than the 2015 model, hopefully that gives you an idea as to things that maybe are better, things that are better maybe on the 2015 model, and hopefully that helps you make a decision as to whether or not you want to upgrade or whether it's worth upgrading to something newer. I hope that this video has been helpful in any sort of way, and if it has, go ahead, give it a like, subscribe, and I hope to see you guys in the next video. I should film Jenny.
British one.
Yeah, the UK one. Actually, what do you think? You haven't felt this one yet, eh?